Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're heading deep into the very specific and incredibly passionate world of Scotch whiskey.
But we're deliberately skipping the big global names.
Yeah, exactly. We are focusing instead on this high-proof, incredibly detailed universe of independent bottling.
And specifically, one company that has, I think, really changed the game in that space, Lady the Glen.
Or Lot G, as we'll probably call them.
Right. And this is just a fascinating mission for anyone who really wants to learn, because Lot G isn't just another label on a bottle. They're a case study in what happens when a company fully commits to authenticity and just extreme transparency.
Our sources for this are really rich. We're pulling from expert retail listings, deep analytical notes on their releases. It lets us get right to the core of their identity and, honestly, the astonishing range of their whiskeys.
And Lot G bottles are, they're essentially single cask snapshots of whiskey history.
What does that mean exactly?
They source one single barrel from a famous, sometimes even a pretty secretive distillery, and then they bottle it under their own name.
But with a philosophy that is just completely uncompromising.
Absolutely. Single cask, cask strength, and 100% unadulterated.
And what's so important to understand here is that Lot G is really part of a much bigger trend, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. It's a pushback against that kind of industrial consistency. You're not buying a flavor that's guaranteed to be the same year after year.
You're buying the unique fingerprint of one specific barrel.
Exactly. From a specific moment in time. And they give you all the data to prove it.
So our mission today is to really dig into how Gregor Hannah, the founder, built this company on what feels like the razor's edge of risk and transparency.
And how their commitment to what they call wood management has turned them into this global name.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Let's understand the foundation of the brand, the genesis of Lady of the Glen.
Well, the story of Lot G is really rooted in youthful ambition, which is pretty rare in an industry that's so often defined by centuries of tradition.
Right.
Gregor Hannah founded the company in 2012, and he was only 27 years old.
Wow. I mean, it takes a serious amount of capital and foresight, just courage, really, to make that kind of leap.
It really does. And the inspiration behind it is just wonderfully Scottish and very personal.
It traces back to his father, right, who was a Scottish bagpiper.
That's it. And if you know anything about Scottish events, weddings, Burns nights, all those traditional gatherings, the bagpiper often gets a gift of appreciation.
And that gift is almost always a bottle of whiskey.
Exactly. The sources say that Gregor literally grew up surrounded by this colorful, eclectic collection of gifted bottles. It wasn't some neat, organized set of distillery releases.
There's a patchwork.
A total patchwork of different ages, different origins, each one telling the story of a specific moment.
And that really sparked his curiosity, didn't it? This idea that whiskey wasn't just a product.
It was a cultural artifact, a collection of unique stories.
So that early immersion, it clearly shaped the brand's identity, this focus on variety and on the story behind the bottle. But let's go back to that launch in 2012. You said it was risky. Why was it such a bold move for a 27-year-old?
Well, the competitive landscape for independent bottlers is, frankly, brutal.
I can imagine.
By 2012, the major distillers were already consolidating their stock. That means quality aged casks, especially from the really sought-after distilleries, were getting harder and harder to find and much more expensive.
So for a small, unknown buyer to get their hands on anything with a decent age on it, that's a huge commitment.
A huge commitment. And yet Lot G launched with just 2 casks.
It sounds so tiny. But the quality of those 2 casks, I mean, it says everything about their strategy right from day one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The debut included a 24-year-old Invergordon, that's a grain whiskey, and a 14-year-old Ben Rins, a malt.
And starting with a 24-year-old grain whiskey as half of your opening act, that's a real signal to the market, isn't it?
It's a huge signal.
Why is that grain choice so important?
Because, most consumers just think of grain whiskey as filler for blends. But Lot G showed they knew the value of well-aged grain. It's a lighter spirit, it's distilled differently, but after 2 decades in a cask, it develops this incredible creamy texture, these intense vanilla spice notes. Yeah. It appeals to the real enthusiasts.
So they weren't just chasing a big-name single malt.
No. They were prioritizing quality and character, no matter how famous the distillery was.
That confidence really solidified their identity. And speaking of identity, it's so beautifully done, starting with the name itself, Lady of the Glen.
The name is pure Scottish folklore. It's a direct tribute to the Green Lady, a ghost who is famously said to haunt Stirling Castle.
So right away, you're linking the brand not just to Scotland, but to its myths, its history,
Sure.
a little bit of Gothic romance even.
It elevates it. It's more than just a drink.
And the visual design, the aesthetics, they really reinforce this connection to the wild Scottish landscape. You see this very distinct purple color palette and these floral patterns across the labels.
And that's a very deliberate choice. It's an homage to the wildflowers you see in a Scottish Glen heather, thistles, all of it.
It's smart marketing, obviously, but it feels authentic. It feels true to the origin story.
It is. They're not just bottling the liquid. They're trying to bottle the emotional and aesthetic experience of Scotland.
Operationally, the company is based out of Dalgety Bay in Fife, which is geographically a pretty ideal spot.
Yeah, it's right near Edinburgh. A solid base for all the logistics, sourcing, storage, bottling.
And that local grounding, combined with this uncompromising quality, has really allowed them to grow.
Impressively so. We see them exporting to over 10 markets globally now.
Which just proves that this blend of quality, transparency, and a strong story, it resonates everywhere.
Enthusiasts all over the world are looking for this kind of non-industrial, highly traceable spirit.
And that desire for traceability brings us right to the heart of their operation, to what we can call their manifesto. Let's move into Lodgy's foundational commitment, purity and transparency.
This section, I think, defines why Lodgy bottles command a premium and why they're so sought after by serious drinkers.
And it all starts and ends with this core commitment to working exclusively with single cask releases.
Exclusively.
Okay, can we just pause there for a minute? I want to make sure everyone really grasps the weight of single cask.
Of course. So think of a standard commercial whiskey as a huge symphony orchestra.
Yeah.
All the different parts are carefully blended together to get a harmonious, repeatable sound year after year.
Got it.
A single cask, on the other hand, is a solo performance.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
It means the entire batch, whether it's 46 bottles or 300, comes from one single wooden barrel. And once that cask is empty, that specific flavor, that moment in time, it is absolutely, completely irreplaceable.
There's no do-over.
No second chance. It makes every release a finite, unique event.
But what truly defines their authenticity, what we're calling the golden standard, are these three non-negotiables that Lodgy sticks to so rigidly.
And these three pillars are a direct challenge to the commercial bottling practices of so many of the major distilleries. The first one is cask strength.
Right. All releases are bottled at natural ABV or full fad stark with 0 water dilution.
And we see that range, right, from around 46% up to a blistering 60.8%.
Which, for a casual drinker, might sound a bit intimidating. What does cask strength actually mean for the experience?
It means you're getting the spirit in its rawest, most potent form, exactly as it came out of the wood. And this is important for 2 reasons.
Okay.
First, it ensures flavor integrity. Dilution doesn't just lower the alcohol, it fundamentally changes the viscosity and how the flavor compounds interact with each other.
And the second reason?
It gives you, the consumer, control over the dilution process.
So the high ABV isn't just about getting a stronger drink, it's about preservation and, well, consumer agency. The ritual of adding a drop of water is part of the whole experience.
Precisely. High ABV spirits are often described as being a bit tight or locked down.
Mm-hmm.
Adding a few drops of water lowers the alcohol's surface tension, and that allows those heavier, more complex flavor molecules, the esters, the phenolics, to rise up and become more expressive.
Mm-hmm. So if you buy a Lodgy bottle at 60%, you can actually try it at 55%, 50%, 45%. You're getting multiple tasting experiences from one bottle.
Exactly.
Okay, let's move to the second pillar, unchill filtered. Now, this is a technical detail, but it dramatically affects how the whiskey feels when you drink it.
Yes. So chill filtering is a process where the whiskey is cooled down to near freezing and then filtered. Most big brands do this to prevent flocculation.
Flocculation. You mean the cloudiness that can happen when you add water or ice?
That's the one. It's a cosmetic process. But in doing so, you strip out natural compounds.
And what are they stripping out? Why should we care?
They're removing long-chain fatty acids, certain esters, and these wonderful volatile oils. These are the things that cause the cloudiness at cold temperatures, but they are absolutely critical to the spirit's character.
So when Lodgy skips that process, they're preserving the whiskey's full natural texture.
That's it.
And can you make that tangible? What does that natural texture actually feel like?
It creates a thicker, almost velvety mouthfeel. The whiskey coats your tongue more effectively.
Which means the finish lasts longer.
Right, and it allows those oils to deliver the flavor more slowly and more robustly. So the collector is essentially saying, I will happily tolerate a little visual haze for the benefit of a superior oily mouthfeel.
It's an active trade-off. It shows a trust in the quality of the spirit itself.
And that dedication to purity leads to the third non-negotiable, natural color.
This one is pretty straightforward, but powerful.
It is. They add absolutely no coloring agents, specifically no E150A caramel coloring. The color you see in every bottle is purely a function of the wood interaction during maturation.
So if a Lotchi whiskey is really dark, it's earned that darkness through years in an active sherry or port cask.
And if it's pale, it's likely from a refill bourbon barrel that's given up most of its color, allowing the distillate, the spirit itself, to shine.
Correct. These three standards, cask strength, unchill filtered, natural color, are the absolute bedrock of Lotchi's credibility, they're saying. Well, we will not compromise the whiskey for looks or for consistency.
And this commitment to purity leads right into their radical level of transparency.
I was wondering about that. Is there ever a risk that providing too much information, like detailing an extremely low bottle count, could actually hurt them?
That's a great question. And theoretically, yes. If they had a spectacular cask that only yielded 50 bottles, the market might initially balk at the price and scarcity.
But they've managed to turn that scarcity into a feature, not a bug.
They absolutely have. I saw it across all the portfolio data. Every listing provides every specific traceable detail. The distillery, the precise age, the cask number and type, the exact ABV, and the total number of bottles.
Down to the single bottle.
Down to the single bottle. And that complete provenance is gold for an enthusiast.
When you buy a bottle that says Kale Isla, 11 years old, cask number 319952, yield 123 bottles, you're not just buying a drink.
No, you're buying a piece of data that fits into your personal collection, your own history. It just eliminates any questions about the whiskey's journey and builds trust immediately.
That commitment is really the primary driver of their desirability among collectors.
It is.
So Lotchi starts with the purest spirit and the most rigorous data. Now let's talk about how they turn that raw material into such complex flavor. We move now to the art of wood management.
This is where Gregor Hannah's team really shows their creative genius. They view casks not as, just storage units, but as creative tools.
And the accepted wisdom in the industry is that the cask is responsible for, 60 to 80% of the final flavor?
At least. And Lotchi acts on this knowledge. They proactively source and manage their wood.
Which means they aren't just passively waiting for casks to become available. They're actively shaping the flavor outcomes by buying specific, often exotic wood from all over the world.
Exactly. We see this just astonishing array of international diversity in the casks they use. It shows a real willingness to go beyond the traditional boundaries of Scotch finishing.
Okay, so let's highlight some of those global influences, because this is where the flavor architecture really gets built. Starting with Spain, we see the classic sherry casks.
Oloroso and Pedro Ximénez, or PX, these are the heavy hitters. Oloroso brings dry, nutty, savory notes, while PX brings that thick, raisiny, syrupy sweetness.
And they use them masterfully. I'm looking at the Glen 11-year-old.
A perfect example. That Oloroso sherry finish layered on notes of intense dried fruit, nuts, dark chocolate, and this spicy aftertaste onto what was already a classic Speyside character.
Then they go to Portugal for portline casks, ruby port, tawny port.
And even specialized barrique formats. Port casks typically deliver those deep red fruit notes, plums, a bit of earthiness. But they don't stop there.
No, they bring in Amarone casks from Italy. Amarone is such a rich, powerful red wine made from semi-dried grapes. What kind of influence would an Amarone cask have on Scotch?
You'd expect a really powerful, almost chewy texture. Notes of dark cherry, raisin, maybe some tobacco leaf, and a distinct bittersweet chocolate complexity. It's an aggressive finish.
It needs a robust spirit to stand up to it.
It does. It shows Lotchi is using wood not just to accessorize the flavor, but to fundamentally shift the spirit's whole direction.
And then from France, we see a whole variety. Revsalt's wine cask, ex-white wine cask, and this one that intrigued me, a profiler barrique.
Revsalt's is a French fortified dessert wine, so it's going to add a rich, dried fruit intensity, similar to port. The profiler barrique terminology. You don't see that very often.
What does that suggest?
It suggests a cask that's been specifically selected and maybe even retoasted or conditioned to achieve a highly controlled, specific flavor profile. It means they're likely working with specialized cooperages who profile their wood before they sell it.
But the truly fascinating, unique case study for me was the Glen 10-year, which was finished in an ex-Banyuls cask. Tell us about Banyuls.
Banyuls is a sweet, fortified wine from the south of France, from the Ruslan region.
Wow.
And while it's often compared to port, Banyuls has a very specific character.
Which is?
Dark, sun-baked fruit, figs, deep chocolate, and often this subtle, really appealing earthiness. Using a Banyuls finish shows Lodgy is hunting for nuances that traditional sherry or port just can't deliver. They're aiming for a deeper, more sophisticated dark fruit profile.
This experimentation really culminates in one of their most radical departures from Scotch tradition, the use of the Solera system.
This is genuinely boundary-pushing stuff. The Solera system is the standard way to age sherry in Spain. It involves continuous fractional blending across tiers of casks.
And Lodgy experimented with this in their St. Bridget's Kirk Solera blend using 3 different sherry cask types.
Fino, PX, and Oloroso, all together.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge this. How does that technically work, and how is that even compliant with the Scotch Whisky Association rules? Scotch is usually defined by age statements and batch integrity.
That is the key challenge. For a whiskey to be classified as a single malt Scotch, there are very strict rules. And the age statement has to reflect the youngest spirit in the blend.
So how do they get around that?
Well, Solera-aged spirits are typically marketed differently. They might be called a Solera blend or use a unique classification that doesn't carry a traditional age statement. Or they're bottled as a Solera vat, where the process is transparently declared.
So the strategic insight here is that Lodgy is making a radical statement. They're saying that cask techniques are transferable across spirits globally, and they're blurring the lines of traditional Scotch identity.
Exactly. It's a statement that the process of wood management is more important than rigid adherence to regional practices. The Solera system aims to create this continuous, evolving flavor that never runs dry.
It must be a nightmare to maintain.
It requires massive complexity and maintenance, but it's a commitment to flavor depth over simple batch production. It turns their warehouse into an active laboratory.
That innovation is a perfect segue into our next section, a portfolio deep dive. This is where we see how these high-concept finishing techniques play out across Scotland's distinct regions and age profiles.
And this section really reveals that Lodgy is truly distillery agnostic. They're just searching for the best possible cask, whether it's an obscure malt from the Highlands or a high-profile Islay smoke bomb.
So let's start with Speyside, the largest whiskey-producing region. It's often associated with these gentle, fruity spirits, but Lodgy often delivers a much higher proof intensity here.
Well, we see the versatility of distilleries like Ben Rins, which they've bottled from a classic first fill ex-bourbon cask, giving you bright vanilla and coconut, but also in a first fill tawny port expression, which would be deep and raisiny.
Then you have Craigalackie from a refill butt with an Oloroso finish, bottled at a powerful 60.5% ABV.
And that high ABV ensures the rich, dry sherry character is delivered with maximum impact.
And the more exotic finishes show up in Speyside too. We have Glen in a refill XPX cask,
Giving you that thick, dessert-like sweetness.
and Aucharisk, which got that Rive Salts wine cask finish. These Speyside releases are generally sitting between 56% and 60.5% ABV.
And that high strength is their signature move. It showcases the inherent quality of the spirit before the wood takes over, and it gives you a chance to really dissect that interaction between the spirit and the cask.
Okay, moving north now, let's look at the Highlands. The sheer size and diversity of this region lets Lodgy experiment with different spirit styles and even more specific wine influences.
Take Peanich, a distillery known for its slightly robust spirit. Lodgy sourced a 10-year-old expression and finished it in a Madeira quarter cask.
Madeira. That's the fortified wine from the Portuguese island, right? What does that add?
It adds very specific characteristics, nutty, oxidized notes, and a complex sweetness that's kind of like toffee and dried apricot.
And why the quarter cask? That's going back to the small format idea.
A quarter cask is significantly smaller than a standard barrel, maybe 50 to 70 liters.
Like the octave cask.
Exactly. The smaller size dramatically increases the surface area to volume ratio. This provides really intense, rapid wood maturation.
So even a relatively short finish can impart deep flavor.
Which is crucial when you're trying to maximize the output of a specific rare cask.
We also see Highland releases like an 11-year-old Royal Bracla with an ex-ruby port barrique finish, which would enhance the fruit and spice.
And then a Tormore, using a standard refill barrel at 54.6%. And that Tormore is worth noting.
Guys, that.
Using a refill cask shows Lodgy isn't always chasing aggressive flavor. Sometimes the best wood is quiet wood. Wood that's been used before, so it minimizes the oak influence and allows the delicate, subtle notes of the distillery's spirit to be the star.
Okay, now let's talk smoke. Islay releases are, for many collectors, the absolute pinnacle. And Lot G's sourcing here is both high quality and extremely rare.
The Kale Isla releases are just phenomenal. We have the 11-year-old from 2013, bottled at 56.6%.
And this bottle is a perfect illustration of classic Islay character.
It is a fresh, maritime peat smoke, clear notes of seaweed and sea breeze, coupled with subtle citrus and green apple notes, likely from the hogshead cask.
The notes also highlight an oily, full mouthfeel with a salted caramel finish. That's the unchill filtered approach paying off.
It is. But this specific cask comes with a story of scarcity that is just essential to the Lachie narrative.
This is a perfect example of the unpredictable nature of independent bottling.
So the source notes say that this particular hogshead cask, it leaked during maturation.
Oh, wow.
This is a common, frustrating reality in the industry. Wood is porous, and sometimes the liquid just escapes. It's the angel's share, but more aggressive.
So what does a leaking cask mean for them logistically?
It means a financial loss, of course,
Yeah.
but also means extreme rarity. Instead of getting the expected 200 to 250 bottles from a hogshead,
They only got 123.
only 123 bottles from cask number 319952. This turns an already rare single cask bottling into an ultra-rare piece of history.
The flavor is now linked with the story of the cask's own imperfection.
It's an unavoidable human anecdote that collectors just cherish.
That detail really brings the process to life. Lachie also sources some excellent Bunnahabhain releases, which are Islay malts that are often less aggressively peated.
And we see a great flavor contrast here. One 10-year-old Bunnahabhain has these really unusual notes: smoked tea, honeydew melon, and cookies at 57.7% ABV,
Showing a very delicate, complex side of Islay.
which contrasts sharply with another 10-year-old Bunnahabhain they released, which was matured in an Oloroso sherry hogshead at 58.6%. That one shifts the focus entirely to dark fruit, leather, and spice.
And just as we saw in their debut, Lachie maintains its commitment to exceptional grain whiskey, specifically the remarkable North British single grain.
This is such a vital commitment to diversity. The 1992 distillation, bottled in 2023, is a 30-year-old grain whiskey.
We talked about grain whiskey being distilled in continuous column stills, which results in a lighter spirit.
Right, and that lighter nature means it needs decades to really absorb the wood's character without being overwhelmed by it.
So after 3 decades, what does that 30-year-old grain offer that a malt can't?
Typically a sublime creaminess, often with intense tropical fruit notes that only emerge with extreme age, layered with all that vanilla and wood spice from the long exposure to the oak.
And since grain whiskeys are so often just relegated to blends, bottling a 30-year-old single grain is a powerful statement.
It's a huge statement about their dedication to sourcing quality, regardless of style or region. And with only 188 bottles tapped, it's a highly sought-after rarity.
Okay, so let's talk about how Lachie uses its inventory to tell actual stories. I'm thinking of the thematic series, specifically the Sam Hain series. This goes beyond bottling, it's cultural narrative.
The Sam Hain series is a perfect intersection of folklore and liquid gold. It's a limited edition release of 6 single cask whiskies created to celebrate the ancient Celtic festival of Samhain.
The spiritual predecessor to modern Halloween.
Exactly. And they commissioned an artistic collaboration with an Edinburgh-based artist, Stephen Shand.
The artwork is so detailed, so atmospheric, with themes like the ritual of oak and mistletoe. It really complements the spirit inside, creating a complete package for the collector.
It adds immense cultural weight. Functionally, this series is a deep dive into Lachie's innovative wood strategy because of the specific casks they used, octave casks.
We touched on quarter casks earlier. Explain the octave again because it dictates the extreme scarcity of these releases.
An octave cask is tiny. It holds only about 40 liters. That's roughly 1/8 the size of a standard American barrel.
So the technical implication is that dramatically increased surface area to volume ratio.
In simple terms, the liquid has 8 times more wood interaction than in a full-sized cask.
So a relatively young whiskey can achieve a flavor complexity that usually takes years longer in a standard barrel.
It can, but that rapid maturation comes with a major risk,
Which is?
the evaporation rate. The angel's share is exponentially higher in small casks because of all that surface area exposure.
So you get flavor fast, but you risk losing a much higher percentage of the actual spirit.
It's a very high-risk, high-reward strategy. and it absolutely drives the scarcity.
The scarcity is staggering. The data shows the Teenish, the ritual of oak and mistletoe, was limited to just 46 bottles.
And the Aquawisk, the devil checkmates the wolf, was limited to 62.
Just think about the logistics of that. Sourcing, storing, monitoring, and marketing 46 unique bottles.
This whole series, which spanned from a youthful 5-year-old Glasgow single malt all the way up to the 30-year-old North British grain, is just a masterclass in using wood size and finishing to achieve rapid flavor maturity while guaranteeing extreme rarity.
It really highlights the incredible operational complexity and the breadth of Lot G's sourcing, which is also clear when you look at their age profile extremes.
Their portfolio spans this massive age gap, and yet the quality is always maintained. On the youthful end, you have the Delmanock 6-year-old, bottled at a fiery 59.6% after maturation in an Oloroso quarter cask.
So at 6 years old, almost all the flavor intensity is coming from that small, highly active wood.
The wood is doing all the heavy lifting there. Then on the mature end, you have that 30-year-old North British grain showcasing time and patience.
And the delicate Glen Grant 23-year-old from 1998, bottled at 50.4%.
And that's a beautiful contrast. In the young Delmanock, the flavor driver is active wood, small size, and high proof. In the 23-year-old Glen Grant, the driver is time and the subtle long-term influence of a quality Oloroso sherry hogshead, allowing the distillate's own character to shine through after 2 decades.
Lot G shows mastery across their entire timeline.
They do.
And that consistency, regardless of age or style, is why independent bottlers like Lot G have become such essential players in the modern market. So let's shift gears now into our last section, contextualizing the independent bottler and what this all means for the learner and the collector.
Well, for the serious enthusiast, Lot G is more than just a supplier. They're a curator of flavor discovery. Because of the single cask nature and those ultra-low bottle counts, these releases are true collector's items.
And not just for investment, but for tasting experiences that are utterly singular.
Right. It offers an opportunity to taste a specific distillery's character that you rarely, if ever, see in their standard bottlings.
Why is that?
Because the major distilleries are dedicated to maintaining their house style. They blend hundreds, sometimes thousands of casks to achieve consistency. If one cask is exceptional, if it tastes dramatically better or just wildly different from their house profile.
They often blend it in any way to maintain that consistency?
They do.
Ah, I see. So Lot G is actively looking for the outliers.
Precisely. The independent bottler finds that one outlier, that single exceptional cask that the distillery might have deemed too unique to blend, and they celebrate its DNA.
And that's why a Tainich or a Kale Isla, bottled by Lot G, can provide such a radical departure from the official release.
It's a glimpse into the distillery spirit that is often more intense, more specific, and sometimes you could argue even superior. It's about preserving uniqueness over promoting uniformity.
We should also briefly place Lot G within the broader retail ecosystem that actually brings these bottles to the consumer. Our sources were clearly linked to the retailer Whisky.dk.
Yes. Whisky.dk is a critical part of the European specialty spirit market. It was founded back in 2012 by Ulrich Bertelsen and Henrik Olsen, and it started as a small online business, much like Lot G.
And their growth really mirrors the rise in demand for these premium, transparent spirits. They've grown immensely.
They've become Denmark's largest online and physical store with a massive 500 square meter showroom near Kolding. That level of scale and investment just speaks to the burgeoning market for this entire category.
Their success with multiple Gazelle Awards for growth underscores that the market is just ravenous for this highly specific, highly authentic product.
Absolutely. Retailers like Whisky.dk recognized early on that Lot G's philosophy, single cask, purity, total transparency, was exactly what the modern knowledgeable enthusiast was looking for. The retailer and the bottler are symbiotic in this pursuit of quality.
So let's bring this all together. We've seen how Lady of the Glen successfully built a brand on unwavering authenticity, uncompromising quality, and this visionary wood management, taking the raw spirit of Scotland and marrying it with complex flavors from all over the world.
Their story is really a roadmap for modern spirits production. You have to commit to that golden standard cask strength, unchill filtered natural color. You have to commit to transparency, and you have to be audacious in your creative use of wood.
Viewing casks as instruments rather than just containers.
Exactly. They have proven that there is massive market value in the unique journey of a single cask.
We reflected earlier on how Lotji honors the Scottish landscape and folklore through their brand, the Green Lady, the Purple Flowers, the Sam Haines series, and yet they define the spirit's ultimate flavor profile using global materials. Oloroso sherry from Spain, Ruby port from Portugal, Amarone from Italy, Banyuls from France.
And this raises a final provocative thought for you, the learner, to carry forward as you continue exploring the world of Scotch. We have seen a spirit that is so deeply rooted in place, use methods and materials from around the world to define its character.
So in this modern, highly globalized era of independent bottling, what truly defines the regional identity of Scotch whiskey? Is that identity still purely defined by the stills, the water, and the distillation process in the Highlands, Speyside, or Islay?
Or, as Lotji demonstrates, has the future of whiskey's regional identity become defined by the global wood it meets? Can a Speyside malt finished in a rare Banyuls cask truly be defined solely by the river it was distilled near?
Or is it now a product of global flavor convergence? It's a compelling tension between local tradition and international innovation.
And Lady of the Glen stands right at that crossroads, showing us that the most exciting discoveries are made when you let the barrel tell the final part of the story.
It definitely gives you a lot to mull over the next time you look at a label detailing a specific exotic wine finish and the extreme rarity that defines it.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into Lady of the Glen.
We'll catch you next time for more deep dives into the topics that keep us up at night.